Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayamudhirayet. So we are reading today from the fourth canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, chapter 13, the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, text 21. Ja? Ist 21 dran? Please repeat. Vidura vacham tasyam shilam nidehe sadhor brahmanyasya mahatmanaha ranyaha katham adbhut dushta praja yat vimana yayo viduro vacham tasya shilani desadhor brahmanyasya mahatmanaha ranyakatam adbhuddushtam prajayat vimana yayo prajayat vimana yayo vidura vacham tasya shilani desadhor brahmanyasya mahatmanaha ranyakatam adbhuddushtam prajayat vimana yayo. Tasya shilani de sadho brahmanyasya mahatmanaha Ladies. Anyone else? Please repeat word by word translation. Vidura vacham. Vidura said. Devatas, they're always in fear. The Devatas, they're always in fear. Even they live in such a heavenly place, with all kinds of pleasures, very long life, a lot of power, influence, beauty, vigor, etc. They actually are always concerned that the Asuras might, invade, that they might, try to invade the Devatas. While the Asuras, in the lower planets, like in the kingdom of Bali Maharaj, they're not really. They have the best life in Bila Svarga. It is described. In Bila Svarga, there are demonic people who live there, and they have. It's even better than the real Svarga, because the Devatas have no interest in conquering them. So they're at peace always. So like that. And then it is described in the next yuga. It was different kingdoms. So within planets, different kingdoms. Some kingdoms were very demoniac, like Ravana, in Lanka. He was a Rakshasa. He turned a Rakshasa, actually. His father was also, it's a very interesting story, but we won't tell it now. But Ravana actually was born in a Brahminical family. He was a Brahmana. And at one point, he developed an appetite for Brahmanas. So it's described in the Ramayana. There was a Yajna ceremony where he ate everybody present, and then he went rogue. So Ravana, and his kingdom of Lanka was there were all kinds of his population, the praja, people who lived in the kingdom of Lanka, were of that disposal as well. So Rama and Ayodhya was all saintly people, devotees of Ram. So very clear. One kingdom was of that character, the other kingdom was of a different character. Then in the Dwapara Yuga, the Asuras and Asuras are in one family. So that's not the Pandavas. They are Suras. They are of divine character, while the Kauravas, led by Duryodhana, they are of demonic character. So within a family, and of course it leads then to the Battle of Kurukshetra. And even Arjuna is completely puzzled, how to deal with it, because technically many of them were his relatives, so he was confused about his duty. Before that, it was very clear, a Rakshasa, a fair fight, in one fight, there's one description in the, I think, Dandakaranya forest. Rama was shooting his bow, so fast that the bow seemed like a circle, Basically, he was shooting so fast that you couldn't see the bow going back and forth. It just looked like a circle. And he killed, I forgot in how much time, 14,000 Rakshasas, And nobody complained about it, except, of course, more Rakshasas, were then ready to come. In the case of the Mahabharata, already Arjuna was quite confused, Should I really kill them? They're my cousin brothers, and, maybe it's better to go to the forest, maybe I shouldn't fight, It is confusing, if somebody who's very close to you suddenly has a certain character trait. But in general, even in the Dwapara Yuga, Krishna killed so many demons, So many demons. One example, of course, is also Shishupal. He tolerated so many insults from Shishupal because he was also related to Shishupal. And he had promised Shishupal's mother that he would tolerate 100 insults. But when the 101st insult came, then Krishna summoned his Sudarshana and decapitated him, right there in the middle of the assembly hall. Of course, that's good. It was visible for everyone how the Atma, the Jiva Atma of Shishupal, entered in Krishna's body. So he also got Sajujya Mukti, or Brahman salvation. But in Kali Yuga, it's very confusing, because the Asuric and Suric, the divine and the demoniac qualities, are within each body. So in different planets, in different kingdoms, in the same family, in the same body. So I'm not sure now the story of Vena, if it's in Treta Yuga or Satya Yuga. Maybe it's still in Satya Yuga. Vena did not have, you could say, at least in that life, the chance to be reformed. Whereas in Kali Yuga, we actually, because both are present in each one, there's always a chance to reform someone, because the chance for the positive divine nature to become predominant or awaken is technically always there. So, and of course the classical example is Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai are considered to be no one else than Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, or Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and what's the other one? Shishupal and Dantavakra, were born again as Jagai and Madai. So Jagai and Madai, there were two brahmanas. Their real full names, actually Jagai and Madai are their, you could say, sag man, Spitznamen, say in English? Nickname. So the nickname of actually Jagannath and Madhava. So Jagannath and Madhava became Jagai and Madai. And they became, very, you could say, systematic in breaking the law. It is described, because they were brahmanas, they knew the Manu Samhita. And knowing the Manu Samhita, they, would recite one verse of the Manu Samhita and said, okay, let's break it today. What verse is today, And like that, that's how they used to live. And they were reformed. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that everyone can be reformed. No matter how fallen, no matter how sinful, there is always a chance. Now, if Jagai and Madai could be purified, and redeemed, we can't even speak about all the sins they committed. So in comparison to Jagai and Madai, we're all almost saints. So we certainly have a chance. So let me see what else was there in the purport. Yes, so Srila Prabhupada is mainly talking in the purport about how a family can become disrupted. So a family can become disrupted. Even, of course, the ideal situation, Srila Prabhupada says, in family life, a man is supposed to live happily with father, mother, wife, and children. But sometimes, under certain conditions, a father, mother, and child or wife becomes an enemy. So any member of the family, if any member of the family becomes an enemy, it's very, very painful. And maybe from your own families, you have some examples, or but it's not all that uncommon, actually. Of course, in Kali Yuga, the tendency is for people to be very selfish. The more there is this idea of selfishness or individualistic opportunism, you could also say that everybody is looking out for themselves. It's very destroying for the family unit. The more there is a sensation of, you could say, community within the family, it's, you could say, the beginning of a very powerful or good society as well. Because to live in a family peacefully, you need to have a mood of service. Because when you live with people, you always have to serve and do something for somebody else. And that's how, you could say the relationships, are maintained. And one very powerful example, of course, especially for siblings, is when you read about Ram and his 4 brothers, or also the 4 Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas, and what kind of respect they had, for the older brother, for example, and how they cooperated. If you read this and you grow up with this culture and you imbibe this, it's very, very powerful. It's very, it guarantees harmony. But if this culture is not followed, then you might have a situation where, you have all kinds of, siblings, competing against each other to inherit. It's very common. They're just waiting for whoever is, the owner, the older member of the family to die, so they can inherit. And once the inheritance is there, then they fight amongst each other. For the inheritance. So common. Again and again it happens. And Chanakya Pandit, of course in his Niti Shastra, gives this list. So a father is an enemy if he has debt. Too much debt, Srila Prabhupada says here. A father who has debt, because instead of inheriting, wealth, you can inherit also debt. Thank you, father. You inherit debt. Then a mother is an enemy if she marries for a second time. It says here, she marries for a second time. Then, of course, the child who is not the direct son will experience some disadvantage. That's for sure. That's always there. Then a wife is an enemy when she is very beautiful. It says here. It's dangerous, because of course beauty is one of the very powerful attributes that Krishna has in full, and it's very attractive for men, but also at the same time it creates vanity. So vanity is one of the vices that are very subtle but very poisonous. So when you are subdued by vanity, you have a very strong identification with the body, and your worth, your self-worth is dependent on the body. And whoever admires it, that's what you reciprocate to. And of course, when old age comes, people become very, desperate to maintain, that beauty by any means, all kinds of operations or implants or all kinds of materials or stretching the skin, so it doesn't. Some people, it's mainly ladies, but nowadays also many men are doing it. They can't smile anymore proper. They're like, it's so stretched that they can't master. They have only one expression. Then it says, and a son is an enemy when he is a foolish rascal. Foolish rascal. There's quite a few other quotes from Chanakya Pandit like that. Some of them might seem, in our modern times, not politically correct. But Chanakya Pandit certainly had, great insights. He was a very, we could say, even he was a Brahmana. Chanakya Pandit was also, you could say, very Machiavellian. You know Machiavelli? Somebody knows Machiavelli? He's a politician and from Italy, and basically he knew he was very street smart, and he managed to install in the the throne of India a very simple boy, who he saw very good characters as a kshatriya, so he trained him as a kshatriya, and then he trained him how to topple all the other kings, because they were all corrupt, they were not uniting, they were all very selfish, and there were many threats from outside, especially the Greeks were attacking India at that time. So Chanakya Pandit managed to install, his protege, he installed as the emperor of India, and he started a Chandragupta Maurya, the Mauryan Empire, biggest empire in Kali Yuga, you could say, or recent known history. So he was a very powerful Brahmana, and Chanakya Pandit was famous also because he actually took a vow. First, he was trying to educate the kings. He went to the kingly courts and tried to teach them good reason, to unite, to live by dharma, etc. And when they all refused, he opened his sikha, and said, I will not put a knot in my sikha until a just ruler is sitting on the throne, and unites all of Bharat. And it took many years, but he did it. And even he was, in such a powerful position. Basically, he was the king maker. He made the king. He installed the king. He trained him. So naturally, and he was very tough. Like if you read the stories of Chanakya Pandit, he was extremely tough with Chandragupta. Like he was not a soft, easy guru. He was extremely tough, but that's why he became so successful. His protege. And naturally, he wanted to give him a palace. It's like, you're my guru. You get a palace. You live with me here in the, in the city. What's nowadays Patna in Bihar. And Chanakya Pandit refused. He said, "No, I'm a Brahmana. I live outside in the city in my hut. No problem." So he was uncorruptible as well. He did not take advantage. His motivation was not to gain himself power and wealth. He had a much, you could say, bigger view of the world. And there's a few things that he wrote, but his Niti Shastra is the most famous. Niti on basically logical sutras, explaining different, you could say, truths of life. Like one very famous line by Chanakya Pandit is also that 3 things should be combated immediately, fire, disease, and debt. Very good advice. And like that, there are many, many Chanakya Niti quotes. Then Srila Prabhupada says, in this way, when a family member becomes an enemy, it is very difficult to live in family life or remain a householder. Generally, such situations occur in the material world. So basically, we can all expect to have some of it. And therefore, according to Vedic culture, one has to take leave of his family members just after his 50th year so that the balance of life may be completely devoted in search of Krishna consciousness. So there's of course a different section in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada makes a little bit of a relative, because generally the instruction is when you're 50, you go to the forest, and then after some time the man should also take sannyas. But Srila Prabhupada also says that if the couple are in harmony in Krishna consciousness, there is no need for artificial renunciation or sannyas. So the main point is Krishna consciousness should be practiced, and if family, you could say, because fighting takes so much energy. If you are involved in some conflict, it takes us so much energy. And people nowadays talk a lot about toxic behavior. It's a big topic nowadays. It's mainly put on men. Male toxicity is very harmful. And of course, there's some truth to it. But in general, any conflict is toxic. It's when you're angry, when you have bad thoughts about somebody, it literally poisons. Not only your mood and your consciousness. It's proven it can give you like physical illness. I have a very good friend. She was married many years to not so good man, and it led to her having a tumor growing in her stomach. Like medically proven due to that heavy relationship and difficult situation. She got a tumor in her stomach. They had to cut it out. And when it was gone, and she ended the relationship super healthy. Again. So like that. Ideally, one should fulfill its duties, as long as the children, require. That is at least the ideal, that one should maintain the family structure intact as much as possible, even if it's tough, until you're 50, and then, you know, it is recommended. You know, if there's no harmony, better to let go of it. You know. Okay, I'll not continue much longer, but maybe there are some questions or comments. Yes, was in der Prabhu. Ich glaube, du kriegst gleich ein Mikro von Subal.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. In connection to your explanation of the demonic and divine qualities, and now the divine and demonic qualities are both in us. Therefore, it is well known amongst devotees. We are advised to nourish the divine qualities. It is compared with two dogs. That dog which you feed more will become stronger. So maybe you can give some practical advice or talk about that, what it means for us to feed this divine dog, or how we can nourish this godly divine side in us, day by day maybe.
Yes. This is a very famous analogy. I think it's from the Hopi Indians. From North America, two wolves are fighting in our heart. You know, who will win? You know, the wolf you feed. You know, so we have these two wolves. You know, or like in many cartoons, you know, they depict it like that. You know, there's this person wants to make a decision. You know, is standing in front of, I don't know, and then suddenly the devil comes up in his right shoulder. It's like, do it, hit him in the head. You know. And then the small angel comes with his harp. Don't do it. Be a nice person. I was like, what should I do? You know. So this is, of course, a very, you could say, caricature idea. But ultimately, it's much more profound. You know, it's not only about, you know, making the right decision, about, you know, kill somebody or don't kill somebody. It's about the qualities that we develop, and yeah, it's not every day, every moment, always. You know, basically. Because we have that's the free will that we have is, do we decide for Maya or do we take shelter in Krishna? You know? Do we allow the senses to be naturally following their path? You know, like water. You know, it's the senses are always following the path of least resistance, you know? Whatever feels easy and best, you know? That's what we'd like to do, tend to do, you know? Whatever it's attractive, you know? And but the path of bhakti or yoga in general is to not follow the senses, you know? We don't follow the senses and just allow them to flow, you know, according to their desires, you know? We are restricting the senses and redirecting our attention internally, and that, of course, mainly we're doing by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So whenever we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, we're doing just that. You know? Our senses, our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, they're always pushing outwards. You know? Due to the false ego, they're pushing outwards and want to be engaged outside. You know? And there's always something we want outside. You know? And I remember Toshan Krishna Prabhu. You might know Toshan Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, of course you know Toshan Krishna Prabhu. Toshan Krishna Prabhu is one of the most strict chanters I've seen. When he chants his japa, he sits down and he's like nailed to that spot until he has finished all his rounds. And he always, when we were brahmacharis, he was a grihasta, you know, and he used to come to the temple and he's like, what kind of brahmacharis are you? You're constantly standing up, walking around, looking out of the window at the tram. You are, you know, going to drink something. You're scratching your head, looking, you know, like, just sit down and chant. You know? And that was very powerful because he was saying it out of real realization, you know, that he was only those 2 hours. Just do it, you know. Just sit down and do nothing else, you know. Because if we do that, it gives, you could say, the connotation for the rest of the day, you know, how we react, you know. Do we allow the senses, you know, to a little bit go out and then come back, you know? Or do we really manage to take take shelter of the internal energy, because Radharani is Hladini Shakti, you know, she's Antaranga Shakti, the internal energy. She gives us pleasure, spiritual bliss. And it's all inside, you know, it's Antaranga. And Bahiranga is outside. You know? So the moment we allow ourselves to be externally engaged, we are feeding the wrong wolf. You know? And Ravindra Sarup Prabhu defined it in that way. He said, sense gratification is the act of atheism, you know, atheism. Because when you enjoy, you know, the senses, separate from Krishna, you're basically saying there's no God, you know. I'm God. I want to enjoy. I don't care about God right now. I want to enjoy now. You know? So that's, of course, you could say maybe a little bit, you know, uncomfortable to hear, but it's actually true. If you think philosophically, it's true. It's right, you know. Of course, we don't want to, you know, go around and say, "You atheist, don't enjoy the pizza," you know. That's not the idea, because ultimately, because maybe that person is thinking, "Oh my God, such amazing prasad," and thinking about the devotees, you know. But it's a very internal process, you know. Where are you? What are you thinking? You know, what are you doing? You could be in the altar and be completely in Maya, you know. So it's not so much the external activity; it's what kind of mood do we have, you know. What are we focusing on? And of course, the Hare Krishna mantra is our daily training, you know, to take shelter of the internal energy and not allow the senses to go outside, you know, and try to find something outside. You know. It's a scale, it's described, you know. To that level that we have internal fulfillment, our material desires will go down. You know. And to that level that we engage in material desires, our spiritual realization, you know, is going down. So it's correlated, you know, oppositely correlated. You know. Okay. Anything else? Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.